Okay, good morning, and today I'm reading one of the discourses from 18 Upbuilding Discourses by my favorite philosopher of Yemen, of course, because he is a Christian, he is an existentialist, and he is a Christian, a Lutheran Christian. I have to show it here. No, here, actually. No, it's the camera is I don't know. So basically, you can find it. It's 15 Upbuilding Discourses, one whole book, summarizing all the important theological, actually, observations of Kierkegaard, which he published under his own name. You don't read Kierkegaard, those books which he has published under Victor Eremita or under Johannes de Silencio, which also give us a message, but they are intended to be read in a different spirit than his actual discourses which he published under his own name. Okay, I shall be reading from the book edited and translated by Howard V. Kong and Edna H. Kong. So this discourse is entitled "Love Will Hide a Multitude of Sins," which is taken from the epistle of Peter and also in Galatians chapter 6. What is it that makes a person great, admired by creation, well-pleasing in the eyes of God? What is it that makes a person strong, stronger than the whole world? What is it that makes him weak, weaker than a child? What is it that makes a person unweaving, more unweaving than a rock? What is it that makes him soft, softer than wax? It is love. What is it that is older than everything? It is love. What is it that outlives everything? It is love. What is it that cannot be taken, but itself takes all? It is love. What is it that perseveres when everything falls away? It is love. What is it that comforts when all comfort fails? It is love. What is it that endures when everything is changed? It is love. What is it that remains when the imperfect is abolished? It is love. What is it that witnesses when prophecy is silent? It is love. What is it that does not cease when the vision ends? It is love. What is it that sheds light when the dark vision ends? It is love. What is it that sheds light when the dark saying ends? It is love. What is it that gives blessing to the abundance of the gift? It is love. What is it that gives part to the angel's words? It is love. What is it that makes the widow's gift an abundance? It is love. What is it that turns the words of the simple person into wisdom? It is love. What is it that is never changed even though everything else changes? It is love. And that love, that alone is love, that which never becomes something else. The pagan too extolled love, its beauty and its power, but his love could turn into something else that he exalted, almost more. Love was beautiful, more beautiful than everything, but revenge was sweet, sweeter than everything. So inferior was the pagan's thinking about love and about the heavenly, so selfish was everything both in heaven and on earth, that the power who benevolently gave human beings the joy of love and viciously reserved revenge for himself because it was the sweetest. No wonder then that revenge concealed itself in all the pagan's love. That anxiety was not driven out, even if it was forgotten. No wonder that the enemy worked quietly, even when love slept most securely. Then anger secretly lay in ambush and watched for its chance. No wonder that it is suddenly rushed out in all its wilderness. No wonder that it filled the pagan soul which inhibited its forbidden sweetness and thereby assured itself of its kinship with the heavenly. No wonder that no love was happy, just no one in paganism was happy before the last hour had come, which in turn could only bitterly mock a person with the idea that he had been happy. No wonder that sorrow infiltrated all joy, that the next moment, even the moment of joy, incessantly walked by as alarming as the figure of death. How could a pagan succeed in overcoming the world? But if he did not succeed in that, how then would he be able to gain the world? What is it that is never changed, even though everything is changed? It is love, and that alone is love, that which never becomes something else. The devout Jew also gave witness for love, but his love was the child of a changeableness and variation, and he knew how to hate his enemy. Even though he left revenge to the Lord because it belongs to him, his soul still was not unfamiliar with its sweetness. The consciousness This consciousness is also sweet, that the Lord's revenge is more terrible than any human revenge, that a person curses his enemy, but the Lord curses the ungodly one and the ungodly one's family throughout many generations. No wonder then that anxiety continually kept one eye open, even when love was most free from care. No wonder that anger, even when love least dreamed of it, sat quietly and reckoned everything given and received, reckoned what was yours and what was mine. No wonder that no love was happy until its final hour, because not until then was love's uncertain claim perfectly met. What is it that is never changed, even though everything is changed? It is love. And only that which never becomes something else is love. That which gives away everything and for that reason demands nothing. That which demands nothing and therefore has nothing to lose. That which blesses and blesses when it is cursed. That which loves its neighbor but whose enemy is also its neighbor. That which leaves revenge to the Lord because it takes comfort in the thought that he is even more merciful. It is of this love that Peter speaks in the text just read, and just as this love many times and in many ways received an apostolic witness, so he witnesses here again to its power when he says, love will hide a multitude of sins. So this is taken directly from the Bible, the epistle 1 Peter chapter 4 verses 7 to 12, which is he is reflecting upon. Kierkegaard was reflecting on the epistle of Peter here. So he was reading the Bible, as the Lutherans do, but without the sacraments of the Eucharist and penance or reconciliation. They don't have that. Just Bible and following the Lutheran Reformation of the 16th century. In these words, this witness that we shall look at more closely as we deliberate on how love hides a multitude of sins. But how should we speak of this? Should we speak in such a way that we do not give ourselves time to dwell on the words because the mere sound contains a silent reproach that evokes a sorrowful longing for them and produces a striving towards them, towards the goal that is set for every human being to strive towards? Should we speak in such a way that if possible, even in this hour, the single individual might resolve to take the opportune moment, that if possible, the words might move someone they encountered standing still and doing nothing to begin the race, someone they encountered on the track to speed up the race, someone they encountered running the race to run faster and hurry after the perfect? Should we speak that way as if we were speaking to the imperfect? Should we call to mind how rarely indeed is found even someone who either never knew or has utterly forgotten the world's childhood learning that revenge is sweet? Should we call to mind that every human being, if he is honest, only all too often catches himself in being able protractedly penetratingly and expertly to interpret the sad truth that revenge is sweet, should we call to mind how rare indeed is even the person who left revenge to the Lord, trusting that he had a still more lenient explanation of his guilt, a still more merciful judgment against it, that he is greater than a human heart. How often, on the other hand, every honest human being must confess to himself that he did not exactly renounce revenge by leaving it to the Lord. Should I call to mind how even more rare is the person who forgave in such a way that the contrite enemy actually was his neighbor, the person who is in his forgiveness actually abolished the partition wall and was aware of no difference between them, was unaware that he himself was called in the early morning and his enemy in the 11th hour, was unaware that he himself was 50 pennies in debt, his enemy 500. Should I call to mind how rare is even the person who loved in such a way that when his enemy prospered, his ear heard no whisper of envy, because his heart did not know envy, loved in such a way that his eye did not begrudge this gift. When good fortune favored his enemy, the person who loved in such a way that when things went badly for his enemy, he forgot that it was his enemy. Should we warn against a certain ingenious common sense that in human eyes is less culpable, that cunningly knows how to discover people's faults, that admittedly does not misuse its knowledge to condemn, but nevertheless by the curiosity does not so much violate the neighbor as himself hinder himself? Should we admonish everyone to aspire to that Christian love, because everyone so often needs forgiveness himself? Should we admonish everyone to judge himself, and in so doing forget to judge others, warn against judging and denouncing, because no person can quite see through another, because it has sometimes happened that the wrath of heaven did not consume the one on whom it was called down, but the Lord in secret graciously and benignly found him well pleasing? Should we admonish everyone against zealously calling down wrath upon another, lest by the irreconcilability the focus a more dreadful wrath upon himself on the day of judgment? Okay, here is he speaking basically on love and revenge. They are opposites, but on the same time they are realities found in the human world. You cannot not understand that there exists a sense of personal revenge against who you think has done you harm. The most benevolent of them all is to cut relations with the in particular individual who you think is not loving you but treating you badly. It's a form of revenge. You just don't talk to him. But then there are other sorts of revenge. There is the political assassination, when you start talking about him in a negative manner, and then there is also the physical harm you can do to him. And that's why wars exist in the world. Basically, it's about this that he's talking. The reading will be of another some pages, so bear with me. It's three more pages. And then actually he writes further discourses on this. Love will hide a multitude of sins. Another discourse right after that, entitled in the same manner, but it's a different one, taken from Peter chapter 4, same chapter of this. The following same verses actually. He's still meditating on these verses, so it will take about 1 hour more to go through the end of this discourse today, Sunday, 7th December 2025, Advent. And I will stop here for today. Not here, right after the end of this chapter. Is this the way we should speak? Indeed, it certainly would often be beneficial for us to be spoken to that way, but it is very difficult to do it so that in his discourse the one who is speaking does not himself act contrary to the discourse and come to judge others. Indeed, even to judge oneself in the discourse is very difficult, lest the one speaking be entangled in a new misunderstanding and thereby play havoc with others. This is why we choose the easier task. We shall dwell on the words themselves, and just as every other love has been eulogized in the world, we shall discuss the eulogize and utilize the love that has the power to perform the wondrous fact of hiding a multitude of sins. We shall speak to those who are perfect. If then there is someone who does not feel himself to be perfect, the discourse would still make no distinction. We shall let our soul rest in the apostolic words, which are not deceitful, poetic locution, not a daring outburst, but a faithful thought, a valid witness which, in order to be understood, must be taken literally. Love will hide a multitude of sins. Love is blind, declares an old proverb, and it does not thereby suggest an imperfection in the lover or an unoriginal condition in him, since only when love had won a place in his soul, only then did he become blind, and then become more and more blind as love became victorious within him. This is amazing. Basically, he's observing that, like, I can love, let's call a man, Martin Luther, the reformist who actually started this reformation and through which tradition Kierkegaard belongs. I can love him because he was a bit moody like me, and I can understand that he was frustrated over the sale of indulgences in the 16th century, and from there onwards things went bad, and he started criticizing harshly the poet, rather taking it in the extreme, right? But that means that I am blind. You see, Protestantism is the sum of all errors. So when you start diverging towards Protestantism and even further up to the divisions we have today, they start rejecting the Eucharist, which is heresy. They start rejecting the sacrament of conciliation, which is heresy, etc., etc. So I don't know if Luther went to heaven or hell. There are allegations that he went to hell because of his what do you call it? His insubordination towards the hierarchy. He was a priest, so he was insubordinate to the bishop when he started this whole thing. And a nun in the 19th century saw him, had a vision. I don't know the effect, that you can research it whatever you like. It's in the internet, it's everywhere. The nun who saw Luther in hell, allegedly. Okay, so this is the thing. Love is blind. It's the same thing when a man loves a woman. She is not the perfect woman, she has the imperfections, but his love for her makes him blind, and he wants to spend his rest of his life with her, supposedly. So or did love become more imperfect when, having first deceived itself by refusing to see what is nevertheless so, it finally did not even see it anymore? Or who concealed better, he who knew that he had hidden something, or he who had forgotten even that? To the pure all things are pure, declares an old saying, and does not thereby suggest an imperfection in the one who is pure that should gradually disappear. On the contrary, the purer he becomes, the purer everything becomes for him. Or was it an imperfection in the one who is pure that he, having first kept himself unspotted by the impurity, by refusing to know what he nevertheless knew, finally did not even know anything more about it? It does not depend then merely upon what one sees, but what one sees depends upon how one sees. All observation is not just a receiving, a discovering, but also a bringing forth, and insofar as it is that, how the observer himself is constituted is indeed decisive. When one person sees one thing and another sees anything else in the same thing, then the one discovers that the other conceals, insofar As the object viewed belongs to the external world, then how the observer is constituted is probably less important, or more correctly, than what is necessary for the observation is something irrelevant to his deeper nature. But the more the object of observation belongs to the world of spirit, the more important in the way he himself is constituted in his innermost nature, because everything spiritual is appropriated only in freedom, but what is appropriated in freedom is also brought forth. The difference then is not in the external but in the internal, and everything that makes a person impure and his observation impure comes from within. The external eye does not matter, but an evil eye comes from within. But an evil eye discovers much that love does not see, since an evil eye even sees that the Lord acts unjustly when he is good. When evil lives in the heart, the eye sees offense, but when purity lives in the heart, the eye sees the finger of God. The pure always see God, but he who does evil does not see God. Third epistle of John, chapter 11. A person's inner being then determines what he discovers and what he hides. When an appetite for sin lives in the heart, the eye discovers the multiplicity of sin and makes it even more multiple, because the eye is the lamp of the body. But if the lamp that is in a person is dark, then how great is the darkness? This is taken directly from the Gospels. I can quote it to you, 96, etc. So you find it in the Gospels, okay? You just do a Google search for this and it will tell you the verses. When the anxiety of sin lives in the heart, the ear discovers the multiplicity of sin. So, let's take greed. I'm greedy. I want money for myself. I get pleasure when I get money from myself. And I want more and more and more of the same. Sin gets multiplicity of sin. I'm a fornicator. I like sex. God forbid. I used to, but actually, sometime I will tell you my story. No. Basically, what happens? A fornicator is fornicating. He likes fornicating. He wants even more of the same stuff, which is an anxiety to sin. He perfectly captures it that way. It's an anxiety to sin because it's not the anxiety of fate, it's not the anticipation of fate, it's a different thing. The multiplicity of sin goes contrary to love. When the anxiety of sin lives in the heart, the ear discovers the multiplicity of sin and makes it even more multiple. And it would do no good for such a person to be blind, because a rascal looks down and listens with his rascal ears. When love lives in the heart, the eye is shut and does not discover the open act of sin, to say nothing of the concealed act. For the one who winks his eye has evil in mind, but the one who understands the wink of the eye is not pure. When love lives in the heart, the ear is shut. Okay, die to sin. Same concept, I think it's found probably in Romans, episode of the Romans, which is very long. That to sin and live for God. Die to sin and live. It's the episode of Saint Paul to the Romans. Die to sin, live for Christ. If I die for the self. If I live for Jesus, says Saint Paul in his epistle to the Romans. When love lives in the heart, the ear is shut and does not hear what the world says, does not hear the bitterness of blasphemy, because he who says, "You fool," to his brother is guilty before the council, but he who hears it when it is said to him is not perfect in love. When rashness lives in the heart, a person is quick to discover the multiplicity of sin. Then he understands splendidly. A fragmentary utterness hastily comprehends at a distance something scarcely enunciated. When love lives in the heart, a person understands slowly and does not hear all the words said in haste, and does not understand them when repeated, because he assigns them a good position and a good meaning. He does not understand the long, angry, or insulting verbal assault because he is waiting for one more word that will give it meaning. When fear lives in the heart, a person easily discovers the multiplicity of sin, discovers deceit and delusion, and disloyalty and scheming, discovers that every heart is a net, every rogue like a child, every promise like a shadow. But the love that hides a multitude of sin is never deceived. When stinginess lives in the heart, when one gives with one eye and looks with seven to see what one obtains in return, one readily discovers the multiplicity of sin. But when love lives in the heart, then the eye is never deceived, because when love gives, it does not watch the gift, but keeps its eye on the Lord. When envy lives in the heart, the eye has the power to elicit the impure even from the pure. But when love lives in the heart, the eye has the power to love forth. The good is in the pure, but his eye sees not the impure, but the pure, which is love, and loves forth by loving it. Yet there is a power of this world that in its language translates good into evil, but there is a power from above that translates evil into good. It is the love that hides a multitude of sin. When hate lives in the heart, sin is right there as the door of a human being, and the multitude of its cravings is present to him. But when love lives in the heart, then sin flees far away, and he does not even catch a glimpse of it. When quarreling, malice, anger, litigation, discord, factionalism live in the heart, does one then need to go far to discover the multiplicity of sin, or does one need to live long to bring it forth all around one? But when joy, peace, patience, gentleness, faithfulness, kindness, meekness, conscientiousness live, this is taken from Galatians chapter 6, okay? St. Paul in his epistle of the Galatians, which is only 6 chapters long, he makes a distinction between the fruits of the Spirit, which are practically what Kierkegaard is mentioning here: joy, peace, patience, gentleness, faithfulness, kindness, meekness, continence, and self-control. Actually, it's translated in another manner in my Bible: self-control. Basically, these are the fruits of the Spirit, which St. Paul mentions in his epistle to the Galatians. Live in the heart. No wonder then that a person, even if he stood in the middle of the multiplicity of sin, would become a stranger, a foreigner, who would understand only very little of the customs of the country. If an explanation were required of him, what a covering of a multitude of sins this would be, or if this is not so, should we assuredly say the multiplicity of sin in the world is and remains just as great whether love discovers it or not. Should the apostolic words and the love they describe be left in abeyance as an euphemistic mode of speech that cannot meet the test of investigation, but then would that common sense actually understand love as well as it understood the multiplicity of sin, or would it admit the opposite, that the multiplicity of sin remained just as great when the understanding discovered it or not? Would it not rather congratulate itself on its own ingenuity in discovering and tracking down sin's hiddenness? But then it would be equally true that the understanding discovered the multiplicity of sin and that love hid it, but the one would not be more true than the other. Or was there yet a third way, whereby a person came to know it without intellectually knowing it, or lovingly not knowing it? Would not such knowledge be an inhuman knowledge? It is not then just a rhetorical expression to say that love hides a multitude of sins, but it is truly so, and this is the power of Christian love, which, unlike other love, is not great because of spectacular achievement, but is greater in its quiet wondrousness. Happy the person who saw the world in all its perfection, when everything was still very good, Happy the person who with God was witness to the glory of creation. More blessed the soul that was God's co-worker in love. Blessed the love that hides a multitude of sin. There are some pages left in this discourse. Actually, we're halfway through. Yes, we're halfway through this discourse. I don't want to bore you. This video has been going on for 30 minutes. So we'll stop here for today. And it's already almost 3 o'clock here. And we Catholics say the chaplet of Divine Mercy at 3 o'clock. As Saint Faustina said, asked us to do. So basically I'm going to stop here. And hopefully, if God wants, we'll continue talking about Kierkegaard in another episode.